Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Corey Stark here at KMOV in St. Louis. As we had the August 2nd primary, we were focusing on some of the top races and talking with some of the top candidates from those races. And today we continue our focus on the St. Louis County Executive seat, running for re-election, Dr. Sam Page. Dr. Page, really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. First of all, you've been around for a while, but for anybody maybe watching this who doesn't know who Dr. Sam Page is, give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I'm a medical doctor. My specialty is anesthesiology, and I practice anesthesiology for about 25 years. For the past 3 years, I've been county executive, working to guide us through some very difficult times in our history, through the COVID pandemic, through civil rights conversation around policing, and the thoughtful use of the COVID stimulus funds as we put them to work in our community.
Let's talk about priorities if re-elected. What are your top priorities if you are able to get re-elected as St. Louis County Executive?
Well, I intend to continue the good work we've done protecting the health and welfare of folks in St. Louis County. That means recognizing that the Supreme Court decision has made it difficult for women to get access to an abortion. We will do what we can within the law in St. Louis County to be helpful. We will also be working to expand reproductive health services in all of our Department of Health sites in St. Louis County. We will continue our good work in public safety and implementing our crime plan. Crime is down in St. Louis County because of what we've done. We expect our police department to be well paid, well staffed, well equipped, responsive, and responsible for their actions. We've implemented body cameras, we've given salary raises to police officers, and we've improved community relationships. We've done a lot, and I'm very proud of the work.
The last full calendar year being 2021, you talked about crime this year being down. At that point of that, looking at the full calendar year, murders were up 28%, marked the most killings in the county since early 80s. So what has changed if you're saying crime is down, and what has changed this year compared to last year, and how do you continue to have some of that success?
Well, about a year ago, we had an outside group come in and review our police department, and they recommended some changes. And we've implemented those changes. It takes time to turn the statistics, but year to date, because of the changes we've made, we're turning the corner on improving crime in our region. And those changes are about making the city and the county police department work better together. The leadership of the city and county police department now are communicating on a regular basis, as are the command staff. We're implementing some of those recommendations, including hotspot policing in our more troubled areas, cooperating with the city. We've implemented some changes with the folks that are coming through our jail. We know that over half of the folks committing crimes in St. Louis County were once in our jail. So when they're in with us, we're working to get them pointed in a different direction, working on mental health issues, making sure we're treating substance abuse, and finding them a pathway to a job, and even starting some of that job training while they're in jail. So when they leave, they have a pathway to a job, and they're much less likely to reoffend and see us again. So we work on crime from both sides, on the preventative side and on the law enforcement side.
And speaking of police, you've already talked about body and dash cam video, making that available to the public. But one thing is making it available immediately. Do you think that is being done by St. Louis County Police? And the one thing that we have seen from St. Louis County Police is a new, idea of being transparent, and they're trying to release this video, but it's highly edited. It leaves out some things. It puts graphics in. It's not a raw video of what transpired. Is that okay with you that it's a released, edited version of what happened?
Well, I think it's progress, Corey, and we're making progress. We have to find the right balance around the policy of protecting an investigation that's in progress. And the reason why you protect some of that evidence is so the perpetrators don't get away, don't change your story, don't destroy evidence. So we have to find the balance between releasing video that helps the community understand what happened and making the investigation work properly. And I have to depend on the professionals in the police department and the prosecuting attorney's office to find that balance.
Is the video being released soon enough?
Well, that's an opinion, Corey. That's an opinion of anybody who releases it. Again, I depend on the professionals in the police department to help find that balance between getting video out in the public to give an overview of what happened, but also to protect the integrity of the investigation. We're certainly willing to continue those conversations. We're certainly making progress, but we have to find that balance.
Let's talk some about COVID. If COVID cases spike again in St. Louis County, causing hospitalizations and deaths, will you order mask mandates and restrictions on indoor dining?
Well, everything that we do is done and has been done under the recommendation and guidance of our public health officials and our pandemic task force. When COVID was here for the first two spikes, it was a very different disease. We didn't have enough vaccine penetration in our community. The health systems weren't able to manage it nearly as well as they are now. We didn't have the drugs that we do now. It's a much different disease. And St. Louis County now, because of our work, is the highest vaccinated county in the state. We don't know what the future holds. If COVID comes back like it did in the beginning, it'll be a different conversation. I can't imagine that happening because we have now either immunity from vaccinations, immunity from exposure to COVID. Nearly everyone has some sort of partial immunity, and that makes this a much different disease, a much less deadly disease than it's been in the past.
Yesterday, your opponent, Jane Duker, told me that if Sam Page wins the primary, mask and other restrictions will be reinstated on August 3rd. What's your response to that?
You can reliably expect bombastic, over-the-top inflammatory responses from my opponent. It's been a track record throughout her career in politics. They're rarely ever fact-checked. That's as ridiculous as most of her campaign.
So going back to your previous statement, are mask mandates, indoor dining restrictions, are those off the table moving forward?
I can't imagine a scenario that would bring those back, Corey, here or anywhere in the country. This is just a much, much different disease. You know, no one has a crystal ball. You're talking about uncertainties like, nuclear war or just unpredictable things. But just to put this in the practical sense, this is a much, much different disease than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. We made the decisions we had to make, which were historic, based on the information we had at the time, that our health systems were overwhelmed, and people that were having strokes and heart attacks weren't getting routine, top-of-the-line first world care because the doctors in the health systems were overwhelmed taking care of patients with COVID. There were lines outside of the doors of the hospital.
As you know, the Rams settlement was reached 8 months ago, but the public still doesn't know how much money will come to the county, what is being done with it. Why is there no transparency from you and your office on this issue?
Well, the process of settlement negotiations is required by state law to be confidential. Everyone would like a seat at the table at everything we do in county government, but to protect the integrity of that process, sometimes we have to have confidentiality. And I'm sure there are folks that would like to be able to be in these conversations. They're complex. What we do know now is that the money is in the bank, it's drawing interest, and we are, as it stands right now, completely consumed with trying to be thoughtful with the process of spending the ARPA funds that we have, and there's really no rush.
To get that money into the bank, some might say it took too long. What do you say to those critics?
I would say that every week, every month, every day, sometimes every hour, a decision that's made in county government is met with criticism, and people have to take all that with a grain of salt. I'm criticized for doing something too soon or too fast every day. We make pretty thoughtful decisions with the information we have at the time and try and find the best path forward. Some of these decisions aren't easy.
Let's pivot to some personnel matters that have made some headlines in recent months. Most recently, your Chief of Staff, Cal Harris. Why did you let him put out a statement saying he was resigning for family reasons when you knew that was not the truth? Why did you accept that letter that wasn't the full truth?
I don't control what other people do, and I don't control what other people say. What was important to me was that what he did was wrong, recording it was wrong, and passing the video around among politicians was wrong. When I learned of what he did, he resigned in the same moment before I could terminate him. I don't think arguing over what he said or how he said it has any value. He was leaving. He would have been terminated if he wouldn't resign. What he did was wrong, and we know it, and that's why he doesn't work in county government anymore.
But to tell the public the truth from what you knew, there wasn't immediate transparency. Why?
You know, within hours, less than hours, everyone knew what was going on. When I was contacted, I was asked for his letter of resignation. I provided his letter of resignation. The Highway Patrol was investigating. I do not want to get in the middle of that investigation.
In a recent county council meeting, Tim Fitch asked you if Cal Harris was living in the county building, thus bringing people back there for personal reasons. Can you clear that up for us right now? Is there any truth behind that?
Well, of course not, Corey, but at every council meeting, Tim Fitch says something that's ridiculous. This is a political season, and we've come to expect it, and sometimes it's interesting what he comes up with. This is just another political, inflammatory, seasonal criticism that we get on a daily or an hourly basis now.
Another personnel matter, the county is being sued right now by Lieutenant Colonel Troy Doyle, who was passed up for the chief of police job. Why was he not qualified for that job?
Well, Corey, we've talked about this before. The police board interviews and selects the police chief, and the police board made that decision, and they chose someone else. That suit will make its way through the courts, and they will determine if there's any merit to it. And then we'll learn more about his qualifications when all of this is done.
If you do win re-election, where do you see St. Louis County from an economic standpoint, maybe toward the end of your next term?
Well, so far, in the past 3 years, we've invested $125 million, and we've created thousands of new jobs in spite of making our way through a really historic time with COVID. The public health crisis and the humanitarian crisis came along with an economic crisis, and we worked very hard to find our path through that. We will continue with our partnerships in workforce development. The city and the county, St. Louis City and St. Louis County, are partnering with Greater St. Louis in a $200 million grant, a Build Back Better grant through the Biden administration, to bring a first-class workforce development program to the St. Louis region that will support the NGA and our geospatial intelligence business sector. We know that the airport is going to expand, and there will be new development around the airport. There's a lot of exciting things happening in St. Louis County, and we're really optimistic about the future.
Proposition P was passed by voters in April. So are you doing any paid outside work currently or within the past 6 months beyond your duties as St. Louis County Executive?
No, I'm following the new charter requirement, which was designed to keep the county executive, me or any future county executive, from doing any work, however minimal, outside of county executive. Prior to that, I worked 1 weekend a month and an occasional 4-hour evening shift. But my political opponents were deeply committed to disrupting that, and that was a policy decision that was made, and the voters decided that they didn't want me to do that anymore, and I'm going to follow the charter.
Why should folks in St. Louis County vote for Dr. Sam Page rather than Jane Duker?
Well, this is a Democratic primary, and we're talking to Democratic primary voters today. My record among Democratic core issues is solid. I've worked to support working families in St. Louis County. We've passed prevailing wage legislation. I have the support of the St. Louis Labor Council, which represents working families and union families. My opponent has lobbied against the minimum wage. I'm supported, because of my record on abortion rights, I'm supported by Planned Parenthood and Pro-Choice Missouri. My opponent has made disparaging comments about those organizations, and once the Women's Political Caucus learned of her positions, they unendorsed her. I have a strong record on environmental issues. My opponent has lobbied for and worked for polluters in the past. I have a strong record on crime. Crime is going in the right direction in St. Louis County, and we are building relationships with in the community with our police department. We're making sure our police department is well funded and well staffed, and we're working on the other side of crime by trying to redirect people who would otherwise commit crimes to a more productive path.
We've talked about a lot. Is there anything else that you want to add that I haven't asked?
No, it's been an honor to serve as county executive for the past 3 years. It's been a really historically difficult time, not just in St. Louis County, but all over the country. If you watch the hearings on the insurrection in Washington, D.C., it gives us a little bit of an understanding of where we are in history. It's difficult everywhere. It's difficult in state, local, and federal government. We've been faced with some very complex decisions. We made our best path forward. I'm proud of our work, and I'm optimistic about the direction of St. Louis County.
Dr. Sam Page, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.